and welcome to another book review video. Today we'll be discussing Lies We Sing to the Sea. This came with an Illumicrate box back in March, but I waited until the past week to read it because it is set in Greece and that is just where I happen to be for a few days. And although I am going back in September, this is not going to be coming with me for reasons we're going to get into. So when this came out, it had everything I wanted. It has Greek mythology, which I have been obsessed with since I was a child, and so my expectations for this were probably a bit higher than they should have been. I think it was marketed as a reimagining or retelling, I don't think anybody can quite make up their minds, of Homer's The Odyssey, which is an ancient, I hope I get this right, an ancient Greek poem story manuscript. So this story uses the end part of the Odyssey, the part where Odysseus has returned to Ithaca and he has Penelope's 12 maids killed. That is due to betrayal, I think, of either him, Penelope, the family, disloyalty. I studied it in college for a year and I can't remember really. But it's something along those lines and he has them killed. And this book uses that part as a foundation of the whole story. It's practically, it's a jumping off point. That's what it really is. I can't remember exactly what the maids did to deserve being killed, whether they sold out Penelope to the suitors that were hanging about for a decade while Odysseus was on his way back from Troy. I can't remember exactly what they did, whether they sold them secrets, slept with them, or generally sold out Penelope and all the ways that she was trying to avoid marrying them because Odysseus was taking a decade to return from the Battle of Troy. But either way, they get killed. So we first follow the viewpoint of our main character, Leto, and she's getting ready for her execution. Ithaca is suffering from a curse brought on by the god Poseidon that every year 12 girls will have marks appear on their neck, and they are the 12 girls that have to be hanged on the beach. And if any one of those girls is not brought to be sacrificed, then the sea will rise up and go through the island and anybody on it to get to them. Now Leto does try to escape, and she actually does, but she gets caught and gets ultimately dragged to the beach and sacrificed with the rest. So we leave Leto hanging by the rope and we switch to the viewpoint of Prince Matthias. He is the current Prince of Ithaca and he has to be the one to give the execution order, and he has to do it in person in front of these 12 on the beach. And needless to say, he hates it. He sees it as the ultimate waste of life that it is, and is actively searching for ways to break the curse, which has been going on for over 1,000 years at this stage, and nobody's batted an eye yet. Now, he's actively trying to break this curse, but he's not getting very far very fast, and he hates that year after year he has to watch these 12 innocent girls die by his hand ultimately. And he tries to atone for having to order this by visiting the girls' families that have been condemned to die. And he has specific interest in finding out more about Leto, as the look that she gave him as he was pronouncing her sentence was full of derision and hatred, and ultimately wouldn't us all be, because he certainly would not be getting any smiles from me if he put a rope around my neck. At least not to be hanged. This is where we now switch to our final viewpoint, that of Melantho. She lives alone on the island of Pandu, where she has been for centuries. And this is the island that was conjured up by Poseidon, and this is where the 12 bodies of the girls that are hanged every year, this is where those bodies end up. No matter what the currents, no matter what the weather, this is the beach where the 12 bodies are laid to rest. And it's Melantho that has to bury them, essentially. However, When Leto's body is washed up, she is very, very dead. But as Melantho looks down at her, she looks more alive than dead and suddenly opens her eyes, and she has been resurrected. And we find out later that Melantho has 12 chances to break this curse and earn her freedom, and Leto is the last of these chances, the last of the girls that will be resurrected, and this is their last chance, basically. Over the centuries, Poseidon has resurrected or allowed 12 girls to be resurrected who could possibly break this curse. They are given the powers to break this curse, and Leto is the final one. And if she fails in this quest, there will not be another chance, and the sacrificing of the 12 girls of Ithaca will continue forever. And of course, the 11 girls that were resurrected before Leto have all failed in the specific quest. And what do they possibly need to do to break this curse? They need more death. Leto must kill the current prince of Ithaca, and she must kill him in the ocean so Poseidon can have his vengeance on the royal family of Ithaca and ultimately Odysseus's line, which is basically a son for a son. Which is not explained in this book why Poseidon wants his vengeance, just that he does. And if you haven't read the Odyssey, then it's left up in the air, essentially. But from what I remember of the studying, I think Odysseus was on his way back from the Battle of Troy, and he ends up on the island of the Cyclops, and him and his men end up in this cave. And one of the Cyclops, I can't remember his name. He had a name and it began with P. And I can't remember which one it was. But he starts eating the sailors, and Odysseus ends up blinding him and saying that his name is Nobody. So when this Cyclops calls out for help, he says, "Nobody is hurting me," everybody else just ignores him. However, Odysseus gets cocky on his way out and basically says the king of Ithaca sends his regards. And then the Cyclops, who is the son of Poseidon, yet cries to his father that he's been blinded and it's Odysseus that's done it, and he rains down a curse on him. And that is essentially where the curse of this one comes from. However, in the Odyssey it's a different curse, he just can't get home, I think. If I'm wrong, please tell me down in the comments. It's been a while since I studied it at college, and it's been a long time since I actually sat down to read it again. But of course, nothing is that simple, and time is running out. And when the hearts of the three become involved and entwined, it puts the whole thing in jeopardy of just failing completely, spectacularly even. But is Matthias, the Prince of Ithaca, really such a meek, sacrificial lamb that will be easy to kill? Is Melantho really what she seems, or has she darker intentions? And can Leto really murder in cold blood the one man who has captured part of her heart, even knowing the awful alternative is for this curse to carry on for eternity? We'll have no spoilers here, you'll have to read it. Now, what first grabbed me about this book is the cover. I mean, whoa, that's sparkling. I know you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but it's so shiny, it's so pretty, look at it. It's wonderful. And I do like that we get 3 different viewpoints rather than just the one monotonous one, which I feel adds depth to the narrative. The more viewpoints you have, the more depth to the story I feel that you get. However, not all is rosy in this review of mine. As much as I liked the premise of the book, for me it was too slow throughout, and things were brought up that were not fleshed out properly. For example, Leto's mother was a royal oracle, and she had visions and prophecies which form the backbone of this particular tale and influence many of Leto's actions and thoughts behind them. But what happened to her just seems to get glossed over at the end for something that is such a big part of the book, for it to be sort of kind of ignored and just glossed over. Kind of felt like a cop-out. And one thing that I didn't like, so at the end there is this big exposition dump and events happen extremely quickly and it feels like it's really sped up. I get that the author wanted the time to feel like it's short, but it feels like it's too short and the rest of the book dragged up until the last few chapters. And for me, I just feel that that big information dump could have been sort of meted out throughout the book, which would have given the characters more weight to the decisions that they're making and the actions that they take. So adding to that, the source material is very obvious that it's Homer's The Odyssey, and it is actually recorded in an interview that the author has never actually read it. She has copies of it, apparently, but has never actually read the source material. Which begs the question, can you really write any kind of retelling if your source is just Hollywood movies rather than the actual mythology that you are stripping away? And don't even get me started on somebody who is not from the country of origin of that mythology, taking those characters and those tales and virtually bastardizing the characters and tales that are contained within that particular mythology. It would be like if somebody from, say, Russia tried to tell the story of King Arthur and his Round Table without actually reading any of the source material and just relying upon the magic of Hollywood. It doesn't gel properly. So, in conclusion, for me, this book gets 3 stars, because although I liked the idea and the characters were mostly alright, just for me they lacked depth and the story was too airy and didn't dive into the darker aspects of the subject matter which was brought up. I read it while I was sat on a beach in Greece, which is where it's set, and even hearing the waves in the background, I was surprised that it didn't pull me in more. I was expecting it to. But one thing I feel that this book did exceptionally well is the ending, which might seem a bit weird, but the whole tragedy of the ending just was written really, really well. And I don't get it because the tragedy was written really, really well and the rest of the book for me just was a little bit boring. It was the only part that actually grabbed a hold of me so much that it made me cry a little bit. And I am not ashamed. And for me, it might have just been that I was in a romantic frame of mood. For me, having that reaction at the end of it actually saved it from being something that I will never pick up again, because I will pick it up again. It might be a few years, but I probably will reread it. So if this sounds like something that you would be interested in, please let me know down below. And don't forget to click that little subscribe button and give me a like, because likes make me feel good. And yeah, make me feel good. Give me the love. This is where I love you and leave you all. And as always, keep reading.